first app that Dave always uses to flip a coin. I think that might be Miles. That might be Miles' head that he's playing.
I did not take a screenshot of this last match.
I'm going to text Dave right now and see if my text pops up on his phone. It did. Dave's going to unlock his phone, and in real time, he's going to tell me who he's playing. That's what I thought. So, are we recording yet, Ronald?
We are. We've been recording for a minute. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
Somebody
So
has to reset the timer. Text them that, please.
I assume they'll set it when the timer starts. So they're not playing yet. They're still in setup. I'll text them if the timer doesn't start. So Miles Head is such an interesting player to watch in these tournaments right now. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Miles, Miles was a serious player back in the day. I don't know which tournaments he won or not, but he definitely won some huge tournaments. Was a very prominent player in the original life of the game. This is only the second event he's attended since the tournament circuit got started back up in the early 2010s. But the other tournament that he attended was the 2017 Columbus event. So this is his second OP Cup, and he won the OP Cup in 2017 when he came back. He's playing Dave, so I'm going to assume that both of these guys have a 4-1 record or somewhere for. I'm going to guess they're both in the one-loss bracket because I think that's what I saw when I looked. Either way, though, it should be a great match. We get to see Dave's unorthodox deck online, and this is exactly the kind of situation Dave McMillan wants to be in. He's playing a player who's coming back from the old days, who's a fantastic player, but maybe doesn't have the knowledge of some of the newer characters that are seeing play these days. He's not going to be as up on the meta, so that's really going to require Miles to do a lot of on-site. He's going to really have to calculate and deduce what Dave's strategy is. And Dave's got a very tricky deck where if you miss the 5 JZ coming out from Polaris or you're not ready for the JW coming off White Queen, you can end up having with Miles' deck where he's got 2 negators and 2 full team defenders, he could have 4 defensive cards, think he's okay, and then 5 from Polaris coming out of the hand could be a kill shot. Or if he's not ready for an 8 power card with a +3 coming across as an 11, Dave's got the ability to really smack these kill shots through. And the other power that Miles comes in with is with that deck, he's playing a variation of the Cadillac with a double negate. He's really looking to just fire off teamworks and pressure Dave down, while Dave's playing an anti-teamwork event set, and he's playing Polaris. He's getting to see right off the bat. He's getting the one of the no teamwork events. So Dave's going to look to pressure Miles right off from the beginning. Now, unfortunately, looking at Miles's hand, it does not appear that Miles has a teamwork. But either way, Dave can play knowing that he doesn't have to deal with the speed that comes from the teamwork. So I think this is the matchup Dave wants. I think Dave wants to play against someone who has a really good knowledge of the old environment, but might not be able to deduce what he's trying to do in this deck.
Joe, I have an update for you. Dave and his opponent both have a record of 3-2.
They're both 3-2. So there's a good chance that the loser of this match is going to get knocked out. Now, we've seen Miles just placed on Team Overpower. Miles is playing any heroes. Dave is playing a battle site. Miles is playing the new promo that came out at the last tournament. So that is, again, that's a variation of Great Responsibility from Spider-Man, but it's in any character. So that'll allow Miles to look at the top 5 cards of his deck and choose one. And I did miss it. Miles does have a teamwork. So that event has locked out one of the teamwork. So that gives Dave a 1-card advantage. Dave's got a really nasty 1 per deck. That
So
one
just a
Predacon
little
on
update.
Polaris.
We have the highest number of viewership right now, so it's all riding on you.
Well, thank you. No pressure. Thanks so much for all the viewing, guys. Unfortunately, we don't have Phil Keffer here, who is my co-host. So I'm going to try to keep you guys up to date. But so what Miles just asked Dave to look at is that 5 fighting. That 5 fighting does not have, you cannot defend it with a special card. And this is really what Dave's doing is he's trying to create attacks that Miles' specific deck can't do anything against. And where Miles doesn't have very much on there, I think you're going to see Dave just do his slow and steady strategy here. And the other thing you might see too, Dave is a player that there's a lot of theories with X Babies. Dave is a player that really will gun for X Babies sometimes, knowing a lot of players will leave them vulnerable, thinking that other people won't attack them. Dave is a player that will really gun for them because of how hard it is to defend them, and players usually overstack them. I think you'll see him go right for the X Babies. See, there you go. He's going to play that 3, and he's almost certainly going to follow it up with the JW, which he did. Oh, but he's switching it over to Scarlet Witch. Interesting. Miles probably doesn't remember that White Queen has the same JW because most people only played it off heroes. He's going to follow up with that 7. So he is right off the bat. He is just putting Miles on his back foot. I think Miles is looking at his hand here, and he's just going to have to concede. Now, I will say this, just like with Phil Miller, do not count Miles out. Miles is a fantastic player. I played against Miles in his 2017 Ohio victory at the last OP Cup that he played in. I was his first round opponent. I took a huge lead from him in the first 2 hands, and he still, with some very brilliant play, he still brought that back and ended up winning that match. So Miles is by no means out of this game. What we like to call the cursed card, duplicates for Miles. I don't know what it is about that Doctor Strange 6 or less avoid, but it seems to always be a card that everybody dupes on. Now, Miles is in a really good shape with his placing advantage. Dave pulled that out, but Miles went into this hand with 6 cards to Dave's 3. Miles had 1 dupe, so Miles is up 2 cards on Dave this battle. But as you can see here, if Miles isn't careful and doesn't remember what that 5 does, so Miles just placed his 5 multi on the X Babies. That means he has to have a 6 or a 7 with Scarlet Witch to defend that Polaris 5. So that's something where Miles just may be forgetting. He took the card and he read it at the beginning of the game, but Dave's going to be looking to fire off some kind of hit that will let him follow up with that 5, and that's going to be a really difficult card for Miles to defend. So Miles, if he's not careful, he's going to end up losing Scarlet Witch here to exactly what Dave's trying to do with his deck. Throw things that you're not used to playing against and sneak out a kill. All right, I can't see what Miles is betting. It looks like Miles is going 2. Dave's doing exactly what I said. He's opening with that 5. I think Miles is got it. Nope, he can't play that. He does have the 6 in his hand, so he got lucky there. He tried to go for the special, so he wasn't calculating that card, but luckily he had the 6 in his hand, so he was able to defend it. Miles needs to get some offense going, so he's going to throw the 4 any power. Now, this is one of the new BMG cards. This is the 4 fighting, works exactly like the old A next. It allows him to make an additional attack from any frontline character. So Miles has got to deduce who he wants to go through in this deck. He's going to go for White Queen. Now, that's an interesting choice. I think that White Queen throws those JWs, which are hard to defend, but there's also not as many cards. Oh, great play. Dave has the full team defense for Magneto that avoids a multi-power card. I'm surprised he didn't save it for the 8, but he's just getting it out there. So Magneto now cannot be spectrumed by multi-power cards. If that 8 off Scarlet Witch that's placed or the 5 multi that's placed hits Magneto, they do not count to spectrum. So he's really disincentivizing him to try to attack Magneto. Let's see what he goes for. Dave's playing a Banshee activator. He's playing it through Polaris. This is Luck of the Irish. It looks like Polaris is playing it. If it's successful, Dave's going to get to search his deck and pull a Polaris special out of the deck, put it in his hand. Yep. Miles is going to play his any hero negate from his hand. Now, one thing Miles is going to have with this deck, with Scarlet Witch and X-Babies, Miles is going to have a lot of access to negates. Right. Dave's going to let this go through. So Miles is going to look at the top 5 cards of his draw pile, and he's going to choose one to put in hand, and then he's going to reshuffle his draw pile. So he's got, it looks like he's got 2 spawn 7 strengths. It looks like he's got a negate and a 6. So this is fantastic for Miles. Had Miles not played that card, he would have duped on that 7 strength. He would have duped on a negate. He would have gone into his next hand and had 2 dupes. Ooh, now that's a clutch play. Miles could have taken a negate. Oh, does he? Oh, I don't think he's supposed to reveal that, but Miles could have taken the negate. He could have taken one of the 7s, but he took the 6. And I think his rationale is he's probably thinking if Dave is keeping one of those 5 fightings for Polaris in hand, he doesn't have a way to defend it right now because the 7 is placed on Spawn and the 5 is placed on X-Babies. If he doesn't have that 6 in hand, Dave can just map out that the 5 is an auto kill. And Dave just used Luck of the Irish. He almost certainly went and got another 5 out because he knows that situation too. This is a really, really good game of cat and mouse here, and I'm going to be really interested to see what Dave's play is. So we got a little bit of a pause here. I think Dave's trying to decide what his next move is. Dave's turn. Miles just played great with Miles just played the any hero. Dave is going to put the E-Flow in play. So that is a card that stays in play. Anytime a power card attack is made, Dave's going to have the ability to shift the power card to that card, which blocks the card, and they're both discarded. So the beauty of this, we saw this in Dave's earlier match. Dave tries to put out a shell. So that does not count as a duplicate. Dave can draw another one of those later in the game and play another one and double up on them, so they're multiple in play. Everything Dave does in this deck is attempting to minimize the effectiveness of Teamworks, and everything Miles is trying to do is throw Teamworks. Miles has got 4 cards in hand. Yeah, I thought so. Dave immediately uses the E-Flow. So the Spell of Protection from Doctor Strange blocks the Teamwork. The E-Flow blocks the 5 that was coming across as a 7. And it looks like Miles has passed the initiative back to Dave. Dave's got to decide what to do. I think Dave is really wanting to throw that 4 multi as a kill shot, but his hesitation is sort of broadcasting that he has less spectrum ability off this. He uses the negate off it. Oh, so Miles couldn't take the negate. He had a negate in hand. That's interesting. So Dave is going to play a Beyonder. I bet he's going to go with the Colossus. He's going to avoid with a special and draw a card. Yeah, that's a huge swing. So Dave now avoids an 8 multi-attack and gets to draw a card. So basically it's a card neutral defense. Dave really wants to not dupe on that. I didn't see what he drew. But that puts Miles in a really tough place from a survivability standpoint. Dave's going to really try to pressure his Scarlet Witch now. Oh, so he's firing the 3 from White Queen. He needs a 3 or less power card to defend that. And that does not... X-Babies can be spectrumed with that ally and that JW, so... Now, we've already seen that Miles has a... Oh, he didn't do a follow-up. So Miles is going to play that 7 fighting Teamwork. I'm going to guess that he had a power card that could have blocked the 3, but he didn't want to give up on the Teamwork. Nope, he couldn't have played the 6. So he's throwing the 6 over there. It's coming across as an 8. I assume that that's going to hit the White Queen. Dave's asking how many cards he's got left. Miles has got 1. Now, this is an interesting situation. I think in my situation here, Dave wants to get both of those hits through, and Miles has a 6 or less avoid. I think this is a perfect opportunity for Dave to throw that 6 through as a 6+3, or even if he used the +2, throws it through as an 8 using Dracula's Armory, He's guaranteeing Miles has to use the card in hand to defend it, which he would end with any attack. But he's setting them up so that 8 is a kill shot, and the 2 placed cards don't do anything about it. He's going to go with the 8 anyway, which is fine. This is also a great play because Dave doesn't want to dupe out on that 8 next battle. Now, he has the 9 or less avoid. Now Miles has definitely got an advantage on venture here. So I don't know what Dave's last card is, but Miles has got a pretty significant venture lead. He's at 17 to Dave's 3. But Dave could have a card in hand that could just pick off X babies if it's above a 6. He's going to throw the 6, try to get Miles to use his spell of defense. Miles probably isn't going to bother to use the spell of protection here since he duped on it. Oh, is Dave going for the draw 3? Dave had the Shadow Cat. That's brutal. Oh, so Miles has a 6 or less place. Dave's going to draw 3 cards. Now, not only Miles just also almost certainly has to just get rid of. He just has to run here, I think. I don't think he can stay in. He's risking losing 2 characters. This is such a painful position for Miles to be in. You just don't want to give up that huge venture lead, but he also can't afford to lose. I'm imagining most people stack X Babies so heavy with specials. We haven't seen a negate. We haven't seen a 6-4. I would imagine there's at least 6 to 7 cards in that deck for X Babies if they die. Miles is thinking about it. He really wants that venture, but God, I really think it would be the wrong call. He stayed in. He took it. He's definitely that goes directly to permanent record, so it's not gonna count to venture, but it is a kill shot on the X Babies. Now it's only coming through as a 2, so he can use that 6 or less avoid. Which he's almost certainly going to do. And then he's back to so Dave will have successfully got rid of that extra placed card. They'll both go into the next battle clean, and Dave's going to have a significant venture lead. Now Miles is looking through his dead pile, which is interesting. Dave's not calling him on it, but technically Miles is not supposed to be able to do that. I probably wouldn't call Miles on that either. You know, Miles is a player who hasn't played in a really long time, so we're all, new players are really getting used to the card pool again. I think I'd let him take a look at that, but so I think Miles is going to take the hit. So Miles is definitely going to win the venture, but Scarlet Witch is going to die. That's also an interesting call by Dave. Dave, I don't feel like Dave, now that his draw 3's gone, I don't think Dave is playing a lot of cards that he cares if they get negated. He's got the really great, he's got the telepathic manipulator card coming off White Queen that is basically a penance stare that'll knock someone into reserve. I believe that's the name. That's other than that, though, he's got an 11 for Magneto and a pin, but I think getting rid of X Babies when you haven't seen very many cards is really the way you want to go. Oh, I'm sorry. It was a 4 multi-power card. That's why it wouldn't have actually killed the X Baby. So Dave absolutely made the right play there. These are the kind of things that if Phil Keffer was here, he would call me on and fill you in on the right play. All right, so Miles has got some power cards. He's got the 9 or less avoid. He's got a 6 or less avoid. So he's got some good defense, and he just put the web-headed wizard down. Dave's got some power card defense. It looks like he's got a Professor X activator, which I haven't seen the no specials, so he's got a little bit of a lockout. It looks like he's got another JW. So Dave's character that's the closest to dying is White Queen, and he's probably going to play the last JW that she has in the deck. Now, Dave does like to play bloated decks, but with the 4 there too, if he can do 4 JW, I think there's really probably only 1 card left in the deck for, or maybe 2. If he's playing, I believe he is playing the 6 from the last one, so he's probably only got 2 cards left in the deck for White Queen once those 2 are played. So that's the other thing, is he's also really taking away any advantage Miles is going to get for killing the White Queen. Dave's keeping that anti-teamwork in place. He's got the confusion. It doesn't look like Miles has drawn many of his teamwork cards either. So So Miles has got 5 placed cards. Dave has only got 4 placed cards, not counting the universe cards, which are not damage or venture relevant. So it's really putting the placing advantage up 1 on Miles. But it looks like Miles only has 2 cards in hand to Dave's 4 at least. So Dave's up on overall cards. So Miles has placed out. So Miles took that venture win last time, but he's really telegraphing here that he doesn't want to fight. Dave has perfect information. Dave knows that right now that if he throws that 4 in the follow-up string against the X babies, he's probably so Miles goes 1 as we expected. So the question is, how many cards does Dave want to give him? Dave definitely wants to get those 2 out of the bottom. He's gonna at least go 2. He only went 2. So Dave's doing what he always does. Dave's playing it nice and safe. Dave just wants to get that venture back up to the middle and just lean on that slow advantage. I think Dave's also going to hope that Miles starts to bleed a few discards from Scarlet Witch. Now, I will say we see a spontaneous combustion in the dead pile. We've seen the 8. We know that there's 2 more negates in there because when he did his any hero, so there's one of the negates there. So Miles is going to have a negate. So that all the teamworks that are placed, Miles doesn't have any, but he can't play any teamworks. He's got a dupe of both negates, so that's a dupe. That's unplayable for Scarlet Witch. He's duped out there on the little long shot. He duped 2 of the little long shots. So X Babies, he just dropped 3 cards, and all 3 of them were negates. That's really painful. Dave doesn't look like he had any negates, so Dave's definitely going to be able to place and get an advantage here. That's a really rough turn of events for Miles. Miles is also placed out, and the fact that he didn't draw any universe cards to place here is also going to let Dave just completely catch up on placing advantage. I'm not really sure. Oh, Dave had another Captain Britain in hand, is why he did that. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Dave has 8 placed. Miles has 7. So now Dave has the placing card advantage, and he knows there's no teamworks. I think you're going to see Dave bet. Dave might go 3 here. Dave doesn't like to do the big swings. I don't think you're going to see Dave go 4. I don't think you're going to see him go 5. I think Dave's going to try to get his 3, put himself in a position to go 2 for the win. He's got such an advantage. He wants to capitalize on that event. So we'll see. We'll see what he does here. Did he just go 1? So he went 1. So I think maybe he's just trying to incentivize Miles to go 1 and run. Miles goes 2. Miles goes 1 from the top, 1 from the middle. I think Dave's going to fight this. I think, I think Dave's going to just try to put the pressure on and see if he can take out the X babies. Miles won the last. No, Dave won the last one because Miles did the 1 and run. So I think Dave's going to be the first to act here. I think Dave's trying to decide, is he going to play something from hand or is he going to throw that long white queen string? So he throws the 3. It's not for Spectrum. It does put him at 9, though. And if you don't know what the dead is dead rule is, if a character is both cumulative and Spectrum KO'd, they're automatically dead regardless of inherent abilities. Dave also might just be going for the cumulative. That's going to put him at 12. And he's almost certainly going to... Oh, I'm surprised he didn't play the 4 first and then play the JW, but... He might have another ally in hand, and he probably wants to keep that white queen 4 so he can play the other ally out of his hand, if I was to bet. Now, Miles has a 3 fighting in hand, so yeah. So Miles is definitely going to want to block that 3. So Dave's representing the kill shot on the X babies with the 4 aspect, and the 4 can't be defended with the negate, but he does. Miles does have that spell of protection and the 9 or less avoid, so he's got a pretty good little shield for the X babies. Right? He throws the 4 multi. Dave's Doctor Strange makes the defense. Miles has the option to do a follow up here. Let's see if he chains it, which it looks like he's gonna. He's gonna throw the 7. He throws the 7 against Magneto. Dave blocks with the 8. Dave's doing some quick math. It's still a very interesting battle, I do have to say. Dave's had a little bit of an advantage, but I don't feel like he's been able to capitalize on it. Dave's confusion is relatively a dead card at this point. So Dave's looking at 5 cards right now, where Miles now is looking at 9. So Miles has done pretty good at taking some small hits and getting it to a point where he's representing a much bigger placing advantage now. I think this is one of those times where Dave's deck design is working a little bit against him, and Miles has been able to absorb hits and kind of reclaim that card advantage. Miles is also playing this extremely well. It's like Miles is going to throw the 6-4 and get it out there on Magneto. Yep, exactly. So Little Claw says a 6 strength attack. If it hits, Dave is also -4 to venture. That's functionally like a 10 for venture. And it looks like Dave's going to take it. So that's a big venture swing right there. I think Dave's really going to be looking to try to pull off a KO on X Baby somehow. I think he's really hoping to get that 9 or less avoid to be used so that he can throw the 4. Nope, Dave just goes for the concession. So not as big of a deal. Dave's only down 1 card when all was said and done there. So, you know, he's got the confusion. So he's really going to stop Miles from being able to hit with those teamworks. But Miles really hasn't drawn any. So I think there's going to be a hand soon. There's going to be a hand soon where Miles just gets flooded with teamworks, is going to be able to get him on the board. And we've already seen Dave's Any Hero event go by. So Dave's not really going to have a way to get around him. And that is an unfortunate time for that event. Luckily, he only gets 2 cards with it, and one of them was going to be a dupe anyway. But Dave, he knows that Dave does not have access to activators this round, and he's holding Power Leech in his hand. So if Dave doesn't, this could be a huge swing for the game. Dave has no functional way in his deck to defend against Power Leech. Miles also can't place it this turn, so Dave might end up running just to get out of the chance that Power Leech is there. But if Dave stays in, Miles is going to throw that Power Leech at anyone, Magneto. He's going to call Energy, and he could shred Dave's advantage. Now, the one thing that's great about the new battle site, Dracula's Armory, those 3 basic universe cards, they do count as placed cards. So Dave could just shred his power card ability, his basic universe card ability. He could discard those 3 basic universe cards and say the 4 energy off White Queen or a card from hand and get himself out of a devastating card played by Miles. Under one of the toughest events that he's going to have to come up against. Usually the no activators event, that is the worst hand for you to have to fight. Miles, though, is in a position where he could bet for the win here, and he knows any activators Dave draws have to be immediately discarded. And Miles hasn't played against the Armory. Miles may not be calculating that he may not be calculating that Power Leech is going to only really get 1 functionally playable card. So this may be we may see a bet here that's not taking into consideration. It's what we talked about where Miles has to do a certain amount of deducing. So what they're talking about right now, Miles wants to bet 3, but he's trying to bet 2 from the top. That's a common thing that used to be done incorrectly. Betting missions from the top only pulls missions from the bottom. So Miles cannot bet those 2 from the top. He has to bet them from the middle and risk them going to the defeated pile. That's a common misconception that people make about how to bet. It's very clear in the rules that you can only betting missions from the top only pulls missions from the bottom. So they're just having a conversation about that. Miles may call a judge, but Dave is absolutely right in this situation. Miles has to bet those missions from the middle pile and risk them going to the bottom. Dave drew his card. He got one of his no teamwork events. That's a very good thing to have happen for Miles. Miles is not betting for the win here, so Dave does not have to fight this fight. Dave may want to just run, even though that would put him in a really huge venture hole. He may want to run and just lean on his placing advantage on a hand where he knows he can play activators. There's just too much perfect information out there for Miles to know what he can and can't get through. But so we're going to see this. We're going to see if Miles is going to realize he's going to discard he's discarding 2 of those. He's going to keep 1. I think we might see a couple cards just come out of his hand, and then we might see Dave just run here. Nope, Dave's going to go for the 3rd one also. I know that really hurts you. You spend 3 deck building points to bring Dracula's Armory. That is a very expensive home base to bring when you only have 17 points to build. But Dave doesn't want to get rid of any cards that affect damage or venture. But Dave's going to stay in and fight. He's throwing that kill shot on the X-Babies. I think we're going to see the 9 or less avoid come out. He's either going to have to let the X-Babies die, get rid of a 1 and a negate, or he's going to have to use his best defensive card. And you can see Miles struggling with that choice, but and now I think we're going to see Dave just try to rack up either a Spectrum or a cumulative KO here. That's going to negate it, and that's going to stop Dave's string. So Dave wants to put that pressure on and get rid of X-Babies, and I think Miles wasn't expecting him to fight here. This is exactly the kind of tone Dave wants to send. Miles has not been able to capitalize. He hasn't drawn very many, so to be fair, teamwork cards, but he's not been able to capitalize on teamwork pressure, which is what you want to do in this deck. That's finite power from Spawn. Dave's not going to be able to make an attack with White Queen unless he discards 2 cards. That's essentially going to shut White Queen down for the battle. Now, Miles only has 1 card in hand. Ooh, Dave's feeling it. I can see it. Dave does not like that play. Dave was salivating over the kill on X-Babies. He's touching the cards. He's doing the math again. They're all 3, so it's still the same math. It's still 12. So Dave's in a position where, so Miles has 2 cards in hand. Dave could throw that ally, but he's kept the 1 intellect place, so the X-Babies can actually just block the ally, and then he would have to discard 2 cards, so his card in hand and the 7 to throw the 4, which affects him. So he's going to run, which I think is the right call. Dave, that finite power was a really devastating 1 per deck there. Some people don't play that card in the Cadillac. I think that's a mistake. Finite power... I think that's a little bit of groupthink. That is a fantastic special, and there's so many situations like that situation there where they either have to use a full avoid or a negate to get rid of it, or it's going to essentially function as a full pin. Even if they make 1 attack, having to discard those 2 cards, that's a huge swing. So one thing Miles is doing that's interesting. Most people, conventional wisdom, they only run 1 of the 7 strengths off Spawn. I think Miles is running 3 of them, which I love. I love seeing people don't go for Spawn because most people just run the defensive cards. He's putting those 7 strengths in there, and Spawn is just so much more relevant in this version of the deck than normal. I haven't seen Dave's hand, but Miles has a really strong hand. Oof, so does Dave, though. Miles has finally started to get some of his teamworks. He's got 8s and 7s. He's got a 6-4 if it hits. But Dave's got Magneto's pin so he can shut down attacks from a character, and he's got the White Queen telepathic manipulation, which is essentially a penance stare. The character will have to discard all the cards placed to them and move into reserve. Now, Miles does have his any hero avoid here, the Guardian, so he can defend one of those, and he's almost certainly going to save it for the telepathic manipulation. But one thing that Dave is running so many allies that hit the X-Babies, either one of those allies is a kill. And I don't think, from what I see, I think if Dave was to lead off with that 3 fighting ally on the X-Babies, I don't think Miles has a card in his hand that can defend it. Because the X-Babies can't play. Oh, the X-Babies have the 7 special. So he could use that 7 special defensively, but this is such an interesting game at this point. Miles has clearly got an advantage with the Venture, for sure. And Miles has got a lot of heat in his hand. Dave could be in some trouble here. Miles's deck is starting to do what the Cadillac does, which is just big hits, big special cards, ton of stuff worth Venture and Teamworks, and he's definitely going to be drawing more Teamworks. We've seen all 3 of Dave's anti-teamwork missions, and he does have a Confusion place, but he can't have too many left in that deck. Miles is just bopping up and down. He looks just so much energy to be at this point. You get so nervous when every decision they make here could literally be their life in the tournament. Oh, I thought that was the Any-Hero Void. That the white dragon looked similar. So he may not have the Guardian card. He may have an offensive hand only. So this could be a much different game here. So he's throwing the 4. I would almost certainly think Dave's just gonna fire off the Spell of Protection. That's a off-color card. You're only down 2 Venture. He's got the Confusion for the Teamwork, so you don't know if you're gonna get max value. Dave might want to save that for the little Colossus, but or he might want to use the 7 just in case something slips through. He's worried that she's going to die, but all right, he throws a 5 power card. I like that play. I didn't see that in his hand. I think that's what I would have done as well. Now, Miles can do any follow-up from whatever character he declared played that. He's going to throw the 1 intellect for the kill. Dave's got a 3 in hand. Great. Now, the disadvantage to this is the 1 ally card on Polaris is now a kill shot. Interesting. He's going for Spawn now instead of throwing it as a kill shot on the X-Babies. That's really interesting to me. I'm going to have to ask Dave after this match. Now, they're at 4 minutes, so they just got the 5-minute warning. So they know that the hand after this is the last hand. The question is, has Dave put himself in a position from his bet where he may, Miles could be in a position here where he could, the 5. So if he does not have a 5 power card in hand, X-Babies are just dead. They can't play us. Oh, he does have the Guardian in his hand. He had 2 defensive specials. So Dave's deck just did exactly what he designed it for. Miles had 2 special cards that could defend that. That's so interesting. What an interesting play by Dave. He hid the 5 in his hand. He threw the 3 fighting on Spawn, thinking Spawn would let it hit since he's not damaged, and then snaked that 5 through. He knew there was only 1 power card in the entire deck. We'd seen the 5 multi go by. I don't remember if we've seen the other ones, but he took the gamble that he didn't have one of those 2 cards, and the gamble paid off. So Miles concedes. So they have not called last hand yet. Miles taps the 5. I think to say that was a good play. So Miles is in a tough situation here. He's down the guys that are going to have the 2 most cards, and he does not have a negate. Now his avoid has gone by. Now Miles has snaked out a great card. Miles has his fairy protection in hand, which is his lockout. He is going to drop 2 duplicates, but he's going to be able to avoid one of those pins and lock out Spawn to guarantee he has access to those cards. If they place and get the venture in before this 3 minutes is up, there will actually be an additional hand after this one. I didn't see what was in Dave's hand, but I'm assuming Dave is passing here on the placing. The only thing that really Miles could place at this point is a ally card or a 6 or less avoid, and he doesn't have the 6 or less avoid in hand, so I think it would behoove Dave to pass and get this venture in before that 2 minutes is up. Try to ensure he has another hand. All right. Miles makes his play. They're still chatting about the 5. Miles is smiling. I can't see Dave's. Now they can't see this clock, but it's real stressful being on the other end where, knowing that it's about to run out, there's a chance that this is either the last hand or that they have an entire another hand, and that's a very different game both ways. If this is the last hand and Miles has that lockout, Miles has a huge advantage for winning the game. But Dave has the first bet, and he's the one that hasn't bet yet. So Dave is the one that's kind of dragging this bet process out. Dave just got up from his chair, so something is going on here. I'm not sure what. Dave's coming back. 60 seconds before this becomes the last hand. Miles has got it in hand. I think they're going to get this in and be able to play one last hand. Dave, I think, just went 4 for the win. Miles is in his power pack. Ugh. This could be tough to watch. This is a situation where Miles could do something really clever here. Miles could let the telepathic manipulation hit on a character and then lock out the other character with the fairy protection and then just fire back all those power cards he just got from his power pack. And Dave would have almost no avenue to be able to attack or win the game here. All right. Dave went for the win, so this is functionally the last hand anyway. We're going to see the fight. So Miles discards a 5. That is a duplicate from the cards that he drew. Miles is just going to go the standard 2. Now, Dave bet before the time ran out, so that does count. So there will be another hand if this ends. This is not the last hand. As long as one player has bet, then there will be another hand. Because otherwise, that would give Miles the information on what the bet was, and he could just math out in some cases whether he wins or not. So there is a chance that there's another hand. But if Dave has 4 cards in the bottom of the pile in the defeated missions, I don't think mathematically he could even win. Miles will probably be in a situation where he can just bet 1 and run away. in Dave's big weakness to this deck, if you haven't noticed, Dave does not play a single negate in this deck. Muir Island as a battle site does not have a negate, and he does not have a character with a negate. So Dave has no way in this deck to stop. Dave has no way in this deck to stop that lockout once it's played, and I think we're going to see it played right here. So that's pretty rough. So now he can still pin Doctor Strange, and we can see that that's going to take out a teamwork and an ally. But if Miles is smart, knowing he can't defend Magneto's pin, he's probably going to fire that teamwork off right now. He goes for the ally. So the other thing is, in retrospect, Miles is making the right play. I forgot that Dave had the confusion placed. So Miles is just going to fire off that, and at least he gets one more card that Dave has to spend a resource to defend. Now Dave's got 13 points on Magneto, so he can throw this against Magneto. He knows he can defend it with the 8, but it is for the kill. So he knows that he has to defend it with Magneto. Dave's going to get a little mini lockout. Professor X is going to say no specials may be played against Magneto for remainder of battle. So that's a small lockout against Magneto. And I'd be shocked if we don't see the pin come down on Doctor Strange right now. Because if we don't, unless Dave wants to bait him into using that teamwork. So Dave's going to go same suit with this. He's attacking with more strength. Dave now wants to get as much venture onto Doctor Strange as he can. Okay, great. He put that E-flow out. So now that 8 energy that's sitting on spawn, that's essentially going to be a dead card. Whenever he decides to throw it, it's going to go right over to that E-flow. And then Miles is going to throw the teamwork right into the confusion, and then Dave's going to get the turn back. So that was actually a pretty sophisticated play on Dave's part. Now I think you'll see the Magneto pin come out. Let's see what Dave does here, though. I don't know what's in his hand. I think he's thinking about it. Now, Miles still has 4 cards in hand, though, and Dave has no idea what those cards are. So, but he also isn't going to get much off pinning Doctor Strange. None of the power cards will be pinned down because they can all be fired off through spawn. So it may not even matter if he plays that now, and Dave's aware of that. So I think so. That 3 is for the kill. He certainly doesn't want to throw the 7. So I think we'll probably see the spell of protection off Doctor Strange in the back defend that. I think Dave's regretting not throwing the Magneto card now. Yep. So Miles is playing Web-Headed Wizard off the ally, which is completely legal. So I'm not sure what Dave's talking about. This is a completely legal play by Miles. He can absolutely do that. Dave's asking for some kind of a rules call from the judge, but this is completely legal here. He can definitely, nothing is stopping Doctor Strange from playing that card. He played the ally off spawn. That's one of the big changes we made to Any Heroes is we took off the first icon. So, yep, and the judge made the right call. He's going to go through and get any card out of there that he wants. So he knows it's going to be a spawn or a Doctor Strange card. I mean, we almost certainly know it's going to be the 9 or less avoid. I can't imagine he gets something else. Now, he can't get an any hero, and he has paused it a couple, so I hope he realizes that. But no, he goes for the 9 or less avoid. He does the clever thing, and he takes one from the bottom of the deck, so it's not obvious it's one of the ones that he just used. But that big defense is really what he's going to need here against that 8 power card that's going to come over against Doctor Strange. I think at this point in the hand, we're not going to see Magneto play that. Yeah, and the 9 or less is going to immediately avoid that. That's the one that he just got out. Now, Dave does have one venture on the board. Miles doesn't have any, but Miles has 3 cards left. So now that's a rough play. That is for the kill. I think White Queen is almost going to. I don't know what's in Dave's hand, but he might have to use his 7 on that. Miles is going to have 2 cards in hand, and Dave's only got 1 venture. So this is a really tough play for Dave. That's going to leave Dave, and Dave's going to lose essentially 5 venture off this play. I don't know what this last card is. Dave's basically doing the pin just to stall at this point. He's hoping Miles can't attack with the cards in his hand, so he has to throw the 8 that's placed, and he can E-flow out of it. Now, if Dave had used that 7 energy earlier, so that 7 energy is for the kill on Magneto. He's going to use the E-flow, and I don't know what he's got in this that's really going to make a difference here. So they did call that the last hand, even though technically they could have played another one. Miles is going to take that. Dave gives the fist bump. Dave mathematically, I don't believe at the position he's in, he could have bet for the win after that hand anyway and stayed in it. So it was it was sort of a de facto last hand because of that. So great game. Dave had some plays earlier where I really thought he was going to pull it out, but look, it's exactly like I said at the beginning of the match. I had a very similar match against Miles where I got up early, and Miles is a fantastic player. So I think unless something major happens, I think we're going to see Miles make a top 8 today. Now, that doesn't mean Dave is 100% out, but Dave might have the tiebreakers that he makes it in. If he can win out the rest of it, go 4-3, we still may see Dave McMillan in the finals with this deck. It's nice to see the last 2 rounds also. We have seen any hero decks still win. So it's nice to see that the field still has 2 any hero decks that are at the top. I agree with what Phil said in the last round. I don't think any heroes are less viable by any means. And it's great to see multiple people playing the promo from last tournament too. I thought that was fantastic. I'm going to take a little bit of a breather here, and I'm going to see if we can get a co-host for the next round, so you're not just listening to me talk at you the entire time. But fantastic match here between David McMillan and Miles Head, and we're going to see which one of which, if both or any of these guys ends up in the finals.
Hey, Joe.